Hey guys, Stephanie here with the Northern Gardener. Today I'm going to talk to you about peas. Peas are high in fiber, vitamin C, and vitamin A. There are a few different varieties, well, quite a few different varieties, but two different types of varieties. There are a few different bush pea varieties, but predominantly there are a ton of different vining pea varieties. Garden peas are our first variety that we'll talk about, and they're the traditional peas. The shell is inedible. Two different types are the Survivor and the Spring. The Survivor produces few leaves, which are nice to get predominant harvest from the plant. And then the Spring peas are 2 feet tall and they're prolific producers. Our next type is they're snow peas, and these are flat and sweet, and they do have an edible pod. These are the ones traditionally seen in a stir fry. Two different types of snow peas are the Snowbird and the Avalanche. Snowbird peas are shorter, about 18 inches tall, and the Avalanche can get up to 6 feet tall, and they're a prolific producer. The last type of pea we'll talk about today are snap peas, which I have growing right here. And they're similar to snow peas in a sense where their shell is edible. However, they're much thicker. So rather than being flat like the snow peas, they're much thicker. And we have sugar snap peas, which the vines can reach 6 feet tall, as well as being prolific producers. We also have a sugar bon snap pea, and these mature in a quick 55 days and they reach about 2 feet tall. And then we have royal snap peas, which have a purple outer shell and green inner. So I definitely want to try and grow some royal snap peas next season. Right here I have some sugar snap peas growing, and this is my first time growing them. Here, if I zoom in, you can kind of see how I succession planted these a few days later than the ones over here. And they're starting to flower as well, quite beautifully. And I'm just training them to go up along this TP trellis here. The days to maturity for sugar snap peas are about 55 to 70 days. How to plant sugar snap peas. Are they better to start from seed or from transplant? You should transplant sugar snap peas in the spring because seeds germinate slow in cold soil. Not just sugar snap peas, but all peas. Peas don't like their roots tampered with, so be gentle. But in the fall, I would highly suggest direct sowing. All of my sugar snap peas have been directly sown, and all of them germinated. Soak the seeds in water 12 hours prior to planting for a quicker germination rate. Proper spacing for sugar snap peas and all peas, I'm sure I'm going to make that mistake several times in this video, is to plant them 1 inch deep and about 1 inch minimum apart. Their tendrils will grab onto anything that's near. I have mine planted about 5 inches apart and not very close to other plants. You can kind of see, here's one plant, there's another, and then here I had planted one on each post of the tripod. However, sometimes over here they didn't germinate, or I ran into an issue. So we're back. I stopped filming for a little while because my neighbor is getting some roof repair. work done, and now the marching band a few blocks down is recording, so hopefully you don't hear them in the background. But some other helpful planting information on peas is that these guys are going to get really long. These sugar snap peas will get about 6 feet long, and I highly suggest a trellis like this teepee I have here. The little tendrils that hang off of it won't actually wrap themselves around the wood. These 1x1s are a little bit thick. This twine that I have wrapped around the teepee is what the tendrils hook onto, and it seems to be working out pretty well. Like I said, these are 1x1s with some twine wrapped around it. I highly suggest before setting this type of teepee up, nail in some small framing nails to keep the string nice and taut. Otherwise, it'll get droopy and loose like it did here before I learned my lesson with the nails. Generally, peas are a cool weather crop, so that's why I had mentioned earlier on when to plant them in the spring after your average last frost date, and definitely in the fall after your high summer heat has passed. These peas really thrive in the cooler temperatures. If you plant too early, and there's another frost in the springtime, it could stunt the growth or kill the peas. But if it gets too hot early in the season, if you plant in the spring, then the pods can shrivel up before you're ready to harvest. So it's really kind of like the sweet spot growing zone for these peas. But they are hardy, they are cold weather tolerant, and they grow like crazy. Also note that pea seeds germinate very slowly in cooler temperatures. So that's why I had mentioned earlier that when you have cold soil in the springtime, it might be a good idea to transplant instead of direct sowing the pea seeds. How to water peas. Keep the soil moist. They really prefer a moist soil, and water at the base of the plant, of course, to prevent fungal diseases. Some common problems, pests, or diseases that peas may have, they really don't tend to get too many problems. However, root rot, which is the leaves turning yellow and starting from the bottom and growing up towards the top. Root rot, a way to fix that is to have better draining soil. You can do this by adding compost through crop rotation as well during the various seasons. So this means don't grow peas in the same exact spot every single season you get. Maybe in the spring grow some peas, and then maybe grow some tomatoes or maybe a cucurbit vegetable here, and then in the fall you can go back to growing more peas in this spot. Another pest that you might run into is aphids, and this you might see the little bugs flying around, the little kind of not nests but webs that they can form. And another sign would be the leaves turning yellow and starting to curl under. A way to repel aphids is to have an organic insecticidal soap. If you don't have one of those handy already, look up DIY insecticidal soap. It's usually a mixture of Castile soap and neem oil as well as water, but just Google that. And then also you can have wilting leaves, and peas need a lot of water, so that could just watering more could easily cure having wilting leaves. How to harvest. Regularly harvesting encourages more growth. Harvest when you see full-size peas Peas can be eaten raw or cooked. I enjoy steaming them over the stove for about 5 or 6 minutes, sprinkled with salt. Remove the strings at the seams of the peas. They are not easily digested. So those are my notes on harvesting peas right now. Hopefully I will be showing you guys a video of how to harvest them soon when I get some peas. So let's talk about companion planting now. Because of nitrogen fixation, which is a process that we've spoken about before, it's the act of a legume. They take nitrogen out of the air, it mixes with a bacteria that allows them to suck in nitrogen, and they actually form in nodules in the roots of the plant. But because of nitrogen fixation, peas bring a lot of nitrogen into the soil, which is beneficial for a lot of other plants, especially cucumbers and tomatoes, which are nitrogen-loving plants. Another companion plant for peas are turnips. They actually repel aphids. As I had mentioned, that could be a problem that you face with peas. Basil. Basil actually repels another kind of pest, which are thrips. I've never heard of a thrip, but they are a common pea pest. Plants that are the opposite of companion plants, which I'm actually calling enemy plants for now, are onions, garlic, chives, and other alliums. These plants stunt the growth of peas due to something that is excreted by the onions and the peas absorb. So that actually stunts the growth. Some precautions or lessons learned. Like I said earlier, peas are legumes, and legumes absorb nitrogen from the air. If you're having trouble getting the peas, getting actual pea pods, what you can do is you can add in that beneficial bacteria. It's called Rhizobia, Rhizobia, to your soil. And this bacteria actually helps the atmospheric absorption of nitrogen and can most likely be found on Amazon or at your local non-big box type store. Toward the end of the life cycle of your pea, the plant will start to die. This is very normal, just like most other plants actually, but a lot of people for some reason tend to get afraid with peas. The plants will shrivel up as well as stop producing, but don't worry, this is common. It's just the end of the life cycle of your peas. Some pro tips. Peas benefit from a small amount of nitrogen fertilizer when planted. If you have a nitrogen-rich fertilizer, what I suggest doing is planting your seeds or your transplants, watering, and then water with a nitrogen-rich fertilizer. But you might be thinking, Stephanie, you just said that peas grab nitrogen from the air. Well, due to transplant shock and them being very young and new fresh plants, they don't do this nitrogen fixation as readily as they do when they're fully mature. So peas will definitely benefit from a nitrogen-rich fertilizer when they're planted. If you let some of the pods dry out, the dried up peas on the insides are actually the seeds. So if you can picture a pea pod, those little peas that are on the inside, if they dry up, you could plant those in subsequent seasons. Some of my sources are Garden Supply, Self-Sufficient Me, MI Gardener, as well as Masterclass. Thank you guys, and happy gardening. Again, this is Stephanie with A Northern Gardener.